Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion. My name is Edith and right next to me is my lovely co-host, the chattering teacup.
Hello.
And here with us for an episode of Swiss Noir and Prosecco are two returning guests, Louise Mangos and Linda Huber. Hello ladies and welcome back.
Hello. Lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you both back on our show. We met Louise this year in person, didn't we, Louise?
Yes, that was really exciting at Crime Fest, and we had so much to say to each other. It was nice to be back on the podcast because I don't think we even finished our conversations.
No, I don't think so either.
But it was a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, we already said to Linda before you came on that we missed her at Crime Fest, but we are making up. It's been a while since we spoke to her. It was last year in July, and you both have new books out. Louise, you have The Beaten Track, and Linda, you have Pact of Silence out.
Silence, yes.
Yeah? Who would like to start and tell our listeners a little bit about the new book? Linda, you?
Yes.
Okay.
Fine, yes. This is my newest book, Pact of Silence. It's psychological suspense fiction set in the north of England, in Yorkshire. And it's about a woman who moves house with her husband into his old parents' house, the house his parents used to live in. And it's supposed to be a wonderful new life starting for her. She sets about digging a veggie garden, as you do. And she digs up a horrible secret. But because this secret happened 20 odd years ago and was very much hushed up in the village, nobody is talking about it. There was a real pact of silence back in the day. But it is affecting her family life so much now that she wants to discover what it was. And when she does that, she almost wishes she hadn't started. So
be careful what you wish for then.
Be careful what you wish for, exactly. But it was a very interesting book to write. Firstly, because it didn't turn out the way I had anticipated it would turn out. It took a much darker hue. And because of this, I felt myself, I was really quite affected by writing this book, and it took me a long time to make friends with it. But
just the book or also the characters in the book?
Some of the characters in the book. It was one of those situations where completely innocent people end up doing something really dreadful. And that was what I hadn't anticipated when I started writing it. And although it is a very powerful scene, a very powerful reason for the actions in the book, it was still a bit of a shock to me when it turned out the way it did. I have to say,
having read lots of Linda's books, it was quite a shock to me as well to read something that had a much darker edge than her previous books. But Linda handles that very, very carefully and with a great deal of subtleness. So it was very well written, Linda.
Thank you. Yes. It was an interesting book, and I was very happy to have the help and support of my publisher in the run-up to publication while we were editing, and also afterwards there. So it is like Daria's Daughter. It's out with Hobeck Books. It's in ebook and paperback, and the audiobook is coming at some point. So,
and I guess the Pact of Silence still holds, and group pressure features in there too.
Yes, it involves a group of children, and the actions of these children lead to a pact of silence in the whole village. So nobody is talking about what happened, but the people who were there are still all very much affected by what.
Is it fair to say that the children or some of the children come back then, or are they still all the time in the village?
Some of them are still in the village, but my protagonist's husband is one of the children, and he isn't even talking about it to her. So he knows, his parents know, a lot of people in the village know, and none of them are talking.
It's at the same time a domestic noir, but also a bit more than that.
Yeah. Possibly, yeah. Yes, I think all my books have quite a lot of domestic noir in them. I like those situations where you have a family or a group of people that is in some way dysfunctional. And so they have situations where every one of us can identify with what they are thinking and speaking about and feeling. But there's still something bad that they have to get through to come to the end of the book and hopefully a better life beyond.
I think it's also quite scary to think that a lot of crimes happen within families and that the people you're living with, you can't really trust them because you don't really know them. So that's...
Yes, that's, who can you trust within your own family? That's quite a big question, isn't it?
A scary thought, isn't it? Who can you trust in your own family?
Can you trust anybody?
Yes,
Can
indeed.
you trust yourself?
Never. I never trust myself, to be honest. Never, ever. No.
Yeah.
Louise, what about your book, The Beaten Track?
Well, my book actually has family members in it who are indispensable to Sundrine because she completely relies on their help towards the end of the book. So in a way, I'm in a different situation. I have an antagonist who is completely outside of the family. And the Beaten Track is a stalker book. It's about Sundrine who goes on a round-the-world backpacking trip. And I'll read you the blurb from the back of the book because it delivers a lot in a few short sentences. So this is about Sundrine. After her stalker takes his life and she's jilted by a holiday lover, Sundrine comes home from her round-the-world backpacking trip, perturbed, penniless and pregnant. She meets handsome Scott, who offers her love, security, and all she and her new baby could ever wish for. But their dream is about to turn into a nightmare. So that's quite a lot of information there in a short while. She's a Swiss girl who's decided to forego her going straight into university and do a round-the-world trip. The book is set in the 80s. The early 90s, which makes it very much easier to get away with what today she wouldn't be able to get away with, and neither would her antagonist, because there is just too much IT and computer data restricting everyone's travel around the world, really. I mean, passports and mobile phones, we can track everybody all around the world now. So this book would not hold up in the modern day. And the travels that she goes on, a lot of the information that I put in the book was taken from my own experiences. And I scoured through my journals when I myself was a backpacking student and then later in my mid-20s. And I used a lot of that. So the settings have become very, very ingrained in the book.
Yeah. And I think that works really well, Louise, because this book came out, we were all more or less still in the corona horror, we can't travel situation. And Louise takes us to all these wonderful destinations and describes them all so well. I really enjoyed the travel aspect.
I would hope that's definitely was a marketing ploy at the beginning, because I was hoping to take people on this journey, and I concentrated on selling it like that on social media. Of course, there is something darker happening as well while she's on her travels that kind of intertwines with the story. And so it was people definitely wanted to armchair travel, even.
Or if you're stuck on an airport at the moment, maybe feel like chaos.
I don't really want to get on a plane either right now, because it's just it's a nightmare trying to move anywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Since you said you drew a lot from your own experience for this book, my question would be, what was your scariest experience while traveling?
Well, that wouldn't have been what I put in this book, but I've also written a memoir, which is my agent will hopefully have a look at that and decide whether that can be pitched to anyone. But I was once on my own in a Canadian national park camping next to a frozen lake in spring, and a bear came into the campsite. And I didn't know it was a bear at first. I could just hear these noises, and I had hung my food bag, as one is supposed to, over the branch of a tree to stop bears getting at the food. And I could hear this bear, or I could hear something patting that bag. It was maybe 10 meters from my tent, and it sounded like a kid kicking a football. It was going ba-boom, ba-boom. And I realized what it was. It was before dawn. It was the middle of the night, absolutely petrified. My heart was pumping out in my chest practically. And then I realized it was a bear because I heard it snuffle or snort, and thank goodness I had hung that bag up. It didn't manage to get the bag was too high for the bear, but just imagining how big the bear was in the morning when I woke up and looked at this branch that was almost as high as a house, I thought, oh my goodness, that bear must have been big. Anyway, that was probably the scariest moment in my travel.
Just a bear.
Apart from a few human beings, I did meet a few human beings that I was a bit worried about. When I was cycling across North America, I would see people, I would see somebody drive past me at 3 p.m, obviously going to a bar somewhere, big stack of guns in their pickup truck. And I would see them again at 5 o'clock in the evening coming home. And I was still on my bike going in the same direction. So I vowed after I'd seen that day that I'd seen this person, I thought, I'm not going to ride my bike after a certain time in the afternoon when people are going to the pub.
Would prefer the bear.
Yes, possibly. I mean, I don't think it wasn't a big grizzly, but still, it's quite scary to hear a bear in the middle of the night.
I can imagine that. And may I ask both of you ladies, although Linda's books her thriller books are set in the UK.
Yes.
Or sometimes some of them in England, some of them in Scotland. Louise, yours are the first two of them are set in Switzerland. How much is Switzerland an influence on both of you?
I think in the psychological suspense books, Switzerland isn't much influence on the books themselves. Though, of course, like Louise, I have lived here since the 1980s. And Switzerland has influenced me as a person hugely. I was talking to a friend the other day who is in the same situation, and I think we agreed that we are probably more Swiss now than British, just from living here, because you adapt to the culture, you absorb the culture of the place. You absorb the values and the way of thinking. And from that point of view, Switzerland is a huge influence on me and my writing. And I am actually, I don't know if you remember the last time we spoke, I had a short series of novellas set in Switzerland.
Yep.
These are being restructured at the moment, and I'm hoping to have them out next year as full-length novels. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment because it's feel-good fiction, no crime, nothing much bad happens, and they're set right here on the banks of Lake Constance, so it's lovely.
I love those books, Linda. They're very atmospheric, and I've read the novellas, so I'm really excited to see what happens to the full novels.
Novels, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so for me, it's, but my first two books were set. The first book was set where I live now, and the setting of Strangers on the Bridge becomes part of the character, a character almost in the novel. It's so foreboding in a way, because that's another stalker book. I seem to be high on stalkers in my novels. Probably not the next one, but Switzerland has all this chocolate box beauty, and yet there are wild storms. We just had an amazing storm last night. Dark skies, foreboding, and landslides and mudslides, avalanches. It's just quite a dramatic physical landscape that can. I definitely feel that I can write a more, just as much darkness as the beautiful blue skies and dandelion-filled fields. So Linda's the Linda's the upside of the Swiss writing in terms of setting, and I'm the darker side of it.
And wouldn't Switzerland, the setting, I think we spoke about it in your podcast, Louise, wouldn't it also make a good place for a locked room scenario? Because like we said, it's deceiving, like you just mentioned. The beauty is deceiving.
It is indeed. And I had an idea actually during lockdown to write a locked room mystery in a mountain chalet where there's would have been during the pandemic in a ski resort. And lo and behold, it's been done by about 3 other authors in the meantime. So I might have to wait a few years to work on that one and perhaps not make it part of the pandemic anymore. But there are definitely opportunities for that. The book I've just finished, which is going out on submission through my agent as we speak, it's a kind of a little bit of a locked room mystery. It's about a psychologist whose baby disappears, and she has a group of post-trauma patients who she runs a self-help group with. Some of these are her ex-patients, and she's continuing to help them through something. And during the meetings, they all sit in a room together, all 6 of them, and discuss. And when her baby disappears, they all become suspects. So in a way, that is like a locked room mystery as well. And I did have somebody say to me, why don't you set that one in Switzerland too? Because that will make it this kind of brand that I have of setting my books in Switzerland. At the moment, it's set in the UK, but there is one Swiss character in it. So I always try and have a link to Switzerland. And there are a couple of scenes in the book that come back to Switzerland again. So I can't leave my mountains alone.
And isn't it that Switzerland is more portrayed as a idyllic nation? So maybe a crime seems darker than if it's set in the UK, where we have, let's say, at least the image is more crime.
I think also the fact that, not because I live here, but people regard the Swiss as being very reserved and private people. So who knows what goes on behind closed doors? It's perhaps easier to depict somebody with secrets here than it is, say, in the UK, where unfortunately crime is much more prevalent than it is in our 2 countries. So, yeah, I think that's part of it, yes.
Yeah, and I think too that for Switzerland, the UK people, they don't know very much about Switzerland really, and you can use that to bring in a lot of mystery and uncertainty in the book. Not that I have done that in my feel-good fiction set in Switzerland, but I think it's something that you can use.
And will we see a thriller from you, Linda, set in Switzerland in the future, maybe?
Well, not in the very near future, no, because I have a book coming out in November, which is another domestic noir family drama book, and it is set firmly somewhere south of London. And next year's project and well into the year after that will be the Switzerland books. So
still a lot of work to do on that.
Yeah, well, I'm working on book 4 at the moment. It's a Christmas book, so that gives me a kind of deadline for next year. There's that one, and then there's the Married and Happy Ever After book, which will at the moment end the series, but who knows what will happen after that. Never say never.
Yeah, exactly.
As you mentioned, you're working on the Christmas book at the moment.
That's something for you then.
How strange is it working on a Christmas theme in the height of summer?
Oh, it's totally strange. I went down to get the post up the other day, and in my head I was in December and snow, and you go outside and it's 30-something degrees, and I thought, oh my God, it's hot here. Why is it so hot here? And then I realised, welcome to August. It's there, and you have to kind of train yourself to get into a Christmas mindset. And I'm not a terribly Christmassy person at the best of times, but it has to be it's not very jolly all the time, but they have to bring that in. It is set in a hotel, and the owners of the hotel are trying to create a Swiss Christmas for their UK guests. So it is very much about tradition and what happens here at Christmas time. It begins at the first Sunday in Advent and goes on until the end of December. So,
So are you playing Christmas
it is
music?
very Christmassy in my life at the moment.
But no Christmas decoration, you can see. No,
Not yet.
No. You have to draw the line somewhere, yes.
But Christmas chocolates probably will be in the stores next month.
Probably.
Yeah, oh, don't say that. I saw
bet,
somebody
yeah.
on Twitter say they saw some Christmas cards in Aldi or something in the
God.
UK, and no, it can't possibly be.
Maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, I read a news article about some souvenir shops right in the middle of Vienna selling a few Christmas items because tourists from some Asian countries that are here love to buy that stuff, and they're here now.
So there are Christmas shop. There is a Christmas shop in Pfeffikon as well, across the lake from Zurich from us, and it's open all year round. So they do sell Christmas things in the height of the summer, where it's just been 38 degrees over there as well. So I can't imagine going shopping in there.
That is weird,
Strange. And since you are expats, I think we spoke about it in your episodes, but let's talk about it again, because I think it's important, and it has been even more important during the pandemic, the importance of community and support as an author, or for you as a writer.
Definitely. I mean, we even had Zoom calls together with Linda and Cass and other authors that we know here, and it's even more important than during the pandemic to have done that, to have had these. And there's some events have been online as well. I know some of the festivals that we couldn't attend in person were online, and I think it's all helps to keep the writers enthusiastic about doing their job. So
and I think too that the whole online thing is important, not only for support and communication in that way, but you have to research things for your book, and to do that you often have to talk to a person, and you can be quite grateful sometimes that you can have a Zoom call with an expert in whatever it is to ask your questions about the books. And I think too that is something that will stay, because we have all got used to using this way of communication now, and it is quite effective for a lot of things.
Also, communication with your agents and publishers, I suppose?
Yes. Yeah, we have regular Zoom meetings with the publisher, and sometimes we have, a couple of times we've had team Zooms too, which is quite good, because you don't see those people as you might have done had the pandemic not been ongoing. And I think that's especially true for Louise and I, who don't live in the UK. But it is good to be able to meet people on Zoom.
See people even less than people in the UK might see each other. Also, the emails can be misinterpreted. It's so much easier to see somebody face to face, and just to get the answer to a simple question that might take emails backwards and forwards too many times. I have heard as well that in general in the publishing industry, depending on who's trying to talk to whom, there is a lot of ghosting going on. So the email thing is that people don't get an answer. So it's always so much better to sort stuff out in a Zoom meeting. And often it's way more productive than trying to go through an email list.
Because maybe if you set aside an hour and talk to each other on Zoom or whatever, you're not interrupted. Whereas an email might be somewhere in between, or there's not enough time because you don't set extra time aside for answering an email usually.
Yes, I also think there's something about being able to see a person's face, even on the screen. And I know that, my husband has like 300 emails a day, and sometimes he can just shoot off an email, and I'll say, I don't go through his emails, but it might be very kind of curt and to the point. And whoever's receiving that on the other end might think, okay, this is business. But sometimes you don't want just the business. You want that kind of feedback and support. You want to see somebody's reaction on their faces. You want to be able to interpret what you're asking and the answers you're getting. So this is really important. This is the next best thing to sitting in a room together. And
exactly, yeah. And some people are from nature out, very non-wordy. I think they can write down. I frequently get extremely short emails from my brother in Scotland, but when we are talking, he is as good as the next person, but he's just not a writer in that sense. So
it might also be because he's the one-fingered typist, of course.
Possibly, yes. I don't know.
A gazillion hours to actually write an email.
yeah, and businessman. So it's the whole emails are short is imprinted on his heart, I think.
Yeah. Same as Chris, my husband. He always says, "To the point. We don't want any fluff around that."
don't write a novel. Just get it done with.
You'll never be able to write a novel.
Yep. just keep it for your novel. Keep the novel for your novel. Louise, I have to ask you, because you mentioned it the last time on our podcast. What about the historical novel?
Oh, I know you're really excited about that, aren't you? Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, it's still in motion, and my agent and her assistant are going to read it imminently. And we'll decide on the best pitch for a home for it. It's a very specific time in history, and for listeners who weren't on our last podcast, it's set in medieval Switzerland around the time of the formation of the Confederation Helvetia, which was the original name for Switzerland, and it has themes of it has William Tell's son in it, who becomes a medieval sleuth. It has Knights Templar, fugitives from France. It has a massive battle, and it has a three-way love affair, which it's got quite a bit of romance in it too. So it is a historical novel set on events that really happened in the 1300s, but of course the story is fiction. But I have taken characters out of mythology in a way. They're myths. I think William Tell, everyone thinks William Tell is real, but nobody can prove his existence. If you come here to the canton of Zug and Schwyz and the central cantons, William Tell was for sure a real person. But if you ask historians, they say, well, we haven't proven his existence. But I'm going to say for the sake of this that he was real.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm really looking forward to reading it.
Yes, I know you were keen on that one.
And she doesn't mind if it was actually real or not.
No, it's historical, so hit me with it. Just do it. I'm also wondering, ladies, about possible translations of your books. Are there any in the making or in the future? What can we expect?
In the making, unfortunately not. This is something we all hope for. I did a few with a platform called Babelcube or Babelcube. I'm never sure how to pronounce it. A few years ago, and my publisher has been trying to get translations made not only of my books but of all their books. But it's not easy when you're a small indie publisher to interest the bigger guys, I think. So that is still very much a fingers crossed scenario. I would especially love German translations. I don't have any of these. That would be the absolute high point of my career, I think.
They would
a
be
German
great.
translation of one of my books.
Yeah, absolutely, because
Same
it's a
here.
huge market.
I've had various people, and I had a huge launch for The Beaten Track, and it was lovely to see a lot of people come out and to the bookshop that has an English section in Zug. But I have had since a lot of people ask me, when's it going to be translated? I mean, I must have 100 potential purchasers in the village who would read the book at the drop of a hat. And because the books are set in Switzerland, it makes so much sense to have them translated into predominantly German, but also French.
Yeah.
And I think my publisher, Red Dog, has a connection with a German publisher. And he's promised to have a little chat. So that might be something in the works. And my latest completed novel, which hasn't yet been published, it was the one I described about the psychologist. Although it's not set in Switzerland, or part of it is set in Switzerland, but it's predominantly set in the UK, it may well be the first novel that gets a translation deal, because it's going out on submission to traditional publishers, and so if it gets a deal in the UK, then it will likely get a deal in Germany too. But that's all it's kind of, I don't want to break the rosy vase on speaking about that, because it's all very much in it's in its baby stages at the moment.
Yeah, we keep our fingers crossed for that as well then.
Yes, thank you.
And we spoke only yesterday to a translator and about the difficulties and so on, and the market, and what would be in your opinion, the hardest stumbling block for a translation? I mean, we spoke about getting feedback, for example, from the translator. Is that something you would expect as an author to hear back from the translator? Ask questions?
Yes. When I did the books with Babelcube, there was one translator who she got back to me in particular several times, and some of them were quite interesting, her queries. For instance, in one book, there was a character whose child was going around clutching a handful of jelly tots, which is sort of little gooey sweeties in the UK. And the translator got back to me and said, what are jelly tots? We don't know about these it was Italian. And she said, shall I put in a footnote and explain what jelly tots are? And I said, no, don't put in a footnote. That just distracts people if they have to go and read footnotes. What do you have in Italy? So I think we settled on Haribo at the end. But
Gummibärli.
It was things like that, yeah.
That would be in a German translation, definitely.
The international.
Yeah. Gummibärli, yeah.
Well, so it's interesting you talk about the translation, because in my first two books, I actually have quite a few conversations where I've written foreign words. They're either in German or in French. In the second book, there's a lot of different languages, so there's Spanish as well. Yep. And I would be curious to see how some of those paragraphs would be translated. And I guess that we wouldn't use wouldn't anglicize the words to do it in reverse. And because conversations are happening theoretically in German and French as well, then there might be a little bit of need to restructure some of those sentences and some of the dialogue, I would think. But I'd love to have my book translated into German. That's really, for me as well, it's just like a dream scenario. Yeah. Especially into German. I mean, any translation is lovely, but because we live in Switzerland and we're in the German-speaking part, it would be absolutely lovely to have those translations.
I can imagine, and like I said, it's a huge market, isn't it? Germany.
Yeah.
Germany is a big market.
Austria is just...
Austria and Switzerland, not quite so much, obviously. But yes, German is a big market.
Yeah.
But also Spanish would be a big market, but I don't know if in the Spanish-speaking world these books work that much, like in South America, so I don't know. I have no idea.
I can't say.
So I've heard that in the German, I think we talked about this before, I don't know what the trend is in Germany at the moment in terms of what crime fiction is being read. I know they love police procedurals. I know they love spy thrillers and action crime. And I had heard that maybe domestic noir and psychological thrillers weren't quite so popular, especially during lockdown, interestingly. But I have seen a lot of deals going down recently into German translation. So I would hope that if it did have a dip, that it is coming back up again.
Yeah,
and
I
that,
think so.
We have a chance.
Yes, of course. I think so too, because I suppose they're always on the lookout for new authors and new ideas and new books.
I think maybe you don't want to read about the dangers in your home when you're stuck in your home.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
If you can go out again, it's different.
Yeah.
Although I've heard people say if they're having a really hard time, if they had a really hard time during lockdown, they were happy to read about someone's life who was worse than theirs,
Okay.
who were obviously having an even harder time in lockdown to make them feel better.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Not feel that low. Yeah,
Yep.
maybe.
Yeah. And aside from the translations, I mean, audiobooks, they are huge at the moment.
Yeah.
Their plans.
There's something happening in my neck of the woods about Strangers on a Bridge.
Ooh.
I have just purchased my audio files back from HarperCollins, who did the original audio, and I really liked the recording. The book itself has been reissued with Red Dog Press, who were the publishers of The Beaten Track. But I'm holding the audio rights and the audio files right now. And I dare I say it, I think I might self-publish them on Audible. So there will be an audio book coming out of that. I already had the second book was also made into an audio book. I didn't like that version quite so much. So I'm just holding off on that one at the moment. But, yes, Strangers on a Bridge, watch this space.
Linda, what about your books?
Yeah, my first two books and my fourth are out in audio with the same audio publisher. And they are narrated by an actress called Mariel Schofield, and she does them very, very well. I was really quite almost taken aback how well she read them. Then I have with a book that was with Bloodhound Books, that has an audio version, Baby Dear, which again I don't like quite as well as Mariel Schofield's version. My second newest book, Daria's Daughter, has an audio version, which was commissioned by Hobeck Publishers, and I'm very happy with that one too. That is, she reads it really well, and that one is set in Scotland, so it's a Scottish lady who reads it, an audio book, what do you call them?
Audiobook.
Audiobooks.
Yeah, a narrator. Yes.
Yeah, narrator.
narrator.
Yeah,
Narrator. Yeah,
Actress, narrator.
English has deserted me. Yeah.
Maybe we should have done it for the German channel then.
I mean, I threatened to do that last time, but I don't like my Swiss-German, High German crossover.
Yeah.
So it's really embarrassing.
It could be interesting and fun, I guess.
Yeah, sure. And did you get to have any input or say in who narrates your books, Linda? Or not at all? No,
not at all. The narrator for the first two was chosen. I don't know how it worked out, but it was down to the publisher. And when the fourth book, which also has the audio version, I've self-published that, and she had done the first two books. She had narrated them so beautifully that I decided I would ask if they would take this book too, and they did. There, and then for the Bloodhound book and also for the Hobeck book, it was down to the publisher to organise the audio versions.
Did the narrator contact you at any time about the book?
Not in the sense of asking things, but more in the sense of the latest one, that she was really enjoying it and she liked the Glasgow setting and things like that. And I have got quite a good contact with the narrator now on Twitter, and it is nice. I think we can support each other with in promoting the book.
That's good. I did have a choice actually in my first, especially with the first one. I had a very good relationship with my first editor, who eventually left HQ, which was a real shame. But Strangers on a Bridge has been narrated by an actress who has obviously she is quite good in other languages. And so we had quite a lot of contact because there are these foreign words in the book, but she wanted to know exactly how they should be pronounced. So we had a back and forth. We had voice notes to each other. It was really good. And then I really loved also loved her narration. I mentioned my protagonist her best friend is from North England, and the narrator picked this up straight away and gave her this beautiful northern accent that made her chirpy and fun, and actually was perfect for the book. I really loved it. And her name is Izzy Inchbald. She's an actress and professional voice over narrator. And she invited me to her pantomime the year that the book was released in London. Unfortunately, I couldn't go, but she was willing to send me free tickets to her pantomime that she was performing in. So I thought that was really sweet. And we also have a connection on social media. So that was
to promote each other as well. May I ask, Louise, you said you had a big book launch for The Beaten Track. And did it also involve, because we were talking about it only yesterday, a lot of reading? Did you do a reading? Did you do a reading and a Q&A? Or did you just a little bit like the events on Crime Fest and such with questions podcast? But what was it like?
So it worked out beautifully, actually. It was, I had 2 launches in London about 2 weeks before, the day after that the book was published. And I'd always had this book launch organised at the Gummibärli in Zug, which is our local bookshop. And at my second launch in London, my very good friend Vicky Newham, who is a fellow author, she came and interviewed me, and it worked out so well, and it was so delightful that when she said she was coming over to Switzerland to help me launch the book, I said, would you interview me? It was so much fun. And so she did. So I did a short reading. I introduced the book, did a short reading, and then she did a Q&A. And I felt like it was so much nicer to have somebody to bounce ideas back and forth, a little bit like a panel at a crime festival. And then I did a second reading, and then we drank some Prosecco, which was
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Never guess it.
And is there also something like, we are calling this episode Swiss Noir, is there a Swiss Noir event?
No, we've always talked about maybe having something like that, though. And there are quite a lot of authors here in Switzerland. There are few authors based down in Lausanne and Geneva. The only kind of book event that is really quite significant is in Nyon in the September. They have it's called the Livre sur le Quai, I think. It's books on the quayside. That's the only really big event that I know about that involves international authors. And I would love to be involved in having Alpine Noir or Swiss Noir, but I've seen how much those guys at Harrogate and Crime Fest have to organise. It's a nightmare, I think, and I don't think I would have the energy to do that at my age now. I'd have to get a young team of people to do it, but it would be lovely for somebody to organise something like that.
Yeah. But there are big events when you can always start smaller.
Little.
Yeah, it could be little, but it's very hard, I think, when you ask people to come. I mean, I know that, for example, Iceland Noir has become huge, and this year's is going to be bigger than ever. But it's a big ask to get people all the way over there or all the way over here from the UK, and then only give them a small event. That has to be very clear from the beginning that it's not going to be a massive thing like Harrogate or Butcher. What is one in America called? It's they do West Coast Crime, or there's one in New York, the Thriller Fest and BoucherCon, and it's a different city every year. And it would have to start very small, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think it is maybe something too that it would be possible to organise within the framework of another kind of festival. There could be a book corner in the Olma, the farming market here in the northeast. Something like that. That is a very big event, which has indoor and outdoor aspects there. But again, it would take a huge amount of organising, and you wouldn't only have the book people there, which might be an advantage too, because readers are everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
But I think it's an organization thing. Right?
Yeah, someone has to start it though. Do you have? I think I've asked it before, but I'm quite certain you do. You do have Buchpreisbindung in Switzerland, don't you?
We do have what? So
Buchpreisbindung, where you can't sell a book under the
Where the publishers fix the prices.
Yeah, fixed prices.
I don't know how it works.
I'm not sure either.
Okay.
No, because the funny thing is, when I was organising my Swiss launch, there was an issue with book delivery, and it seems that in Switzerland it's the same as in the UK. So there's only one distributor. There's a monopoly, and if something goes wrong or there's a miscommunication, it's really hard to try and sort that out because there's only one company that does that. In the UK, it's Gardner's. They now have the only catalogue. There used to be another company as well, but I don't know. They sold out, I think, to Gardner. And I think it's the same in Switzerland. Yeah, and sometimes so I think that becomes a bit of an issue when you really need a book to be delivered on a certain date for a launch. It's pretty tough when your publisher is in the UK and they're working as hard as they can to get books distributed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, ladies, please, advice from you as successful authors for our aspiring authors out there who listen to this episode. Who would like to start, Linda or Louise?
I can start.
Yes.
You mean a little bit of advice for the aspiring authors out there? Well, don't be disgruntled or upset by rejection, because that's all part of building and rebuilding your story. I think for every acceptance I've ever had, there must have been 100 rejections with whatever I've been writing: short stories, flash fiction, novels. If writing is your passion, don't let that stop. Never give up, and just enjoy the experience, enjoy the ride. Don't become anxious. Just keep writing.
Sound advice, Linda?
Okay, I would say write what is in your heart, and then be very clear when you start writing that this is the first draft of your novel or your story or whatever, and that you will probably have to do around 7, 8, 9, 10 drafts at least before you get it polished enough. And then you want to show it to someone who is not your mother or your best friend, and get some advice, preferably somebody you don't even know very well, who's not emotionally attached to you. Get some advice and then listen to it there, and then have another go at polishing your novel, and then do what Louise said and keep going. Yeah.
You're allowed to have a little cry, I have to say, when somebody critiques your work. And you think, oh, this is terrible. What have I done? And they're saying terrible things about your work. No, you go away, you have a little cry, then you go to sleep, and you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, actually, their idea was really good. That's going to make my story better.
Yes. I always say in this flat, if you get some kind of criticism or rejection or some kind of a bad review somewhere, you're allowed to have an extra glass of Prosecco in the evening.
Even better advice.
Yeah.
Crying into the Prosecco is
Yep. We agree. Absolutely. Wonderful sound advice. Teacup.
Speaking of a different draft, which one do you think is the hardest for you to write? I'd imagine the first one, but...
First, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because then you are creating, you are recreating. It never comes out as you think it's going to come out, and well, I don't know about you, Louise, but personally, I end up at the end of the first draft with not quite a mess of words, but with a lot of words. And when I go through it the second time, which I always do immediately after the first draft, I go through it once and clear it out, basically. Some of it comes out, more stuff goes in, and then I have a draft to work on after that.
Yeah, I have to be very careful not to go back and edit what I've just written during the day. It's very hard not to do that. I know that it needs attention, but really, I need to get the next paragraph and the next page and the next chapter down before I go back and do that, because what I write in the future might mean I have to take that piece out altogether in the end. And I'm not good at just blurbing it out. Not, I cast an eye back, and I shouldn't be doing that. So that's one of my faults.
Do you make notes to remember what you wanted to change?
Definitely. Yes, I do. I don't track changes when I'm doing my first draft because it becomes complete mess. But I do. I have a notebook beside the computer, and I'll write down a chapter number, and I'll go, oh, look, I've changed something in chapter 27, and that means that there's a whole scenario in chapter 3 that needs rejigging. But I sometimes go scroll back and do it. But I shouldn't. I should wait until the end and then do it.
I think you're allowed to do that. I make notes on the document, on the Word document itself. If I have something and I think back, oh, what was that in chapter 7? I will write in my document, check chapter 27, make sure whatever.
Oh, I do that too, actually. I've just remembered I have a chapter, and underneath the chapter number, I've got something written in red. I've just seen it today that says, double check this information in chapter 4 or something like that.
Yeah, I came across in my novella, my ex-novella that I'm working on, the Christmas one, I came across the words, can the baby walk yet, when they are thinking about planning the wedding. So obviously that had been in my head when I wrote that scene.
As the ring bearer or not? Who knows?
A little bridesmaid.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And any other future plans? I mean, you've touched upon what's coming next from you, but are there any other future plans you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I would like to share that my ebook is coming out on the 16th. Well, it will have come out by the time we air. It's to be published on the 16th of August. And it is an alliance of Bloodhound Books and Red Dog Press, and they're re-releasing the ebook, and so by the time this goes out, you'll be able to order that as well as the hardback and the paperback from Red Dog Press.
Wonderful.
And in terms of what's coming next, is I have a book out on submission at the moment, which is one I described at the beginning. And I have just completed writing a memoir. And of course, we have my historical fiction that I'm hoping is going to find a home too. And I shall just continue writing.
Wonderful. Linda?
Yes. I shall continue writing too. My next book, the title is The Unfamily, and it will be published on the 15th of November in paperback and ebook, with hopefully audio coming at some time after that. And then for next year, I'm aiming to publish the 2 first novellas, maybe March and April, pretty quickly after each other. And then I will take it from there. So that is my plans.
So there's a lot to look forward to from you, ladies. Teacup? Nope. So, ladies, thank you for joining us, for making time for us. It was wonderful.
It's been a delight, as always.
It's been wonderful. It was our pleasure having you on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did enjoy this episode as much as we did? Then hit subscribe and don't miss the next episode. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you like to support us and buy us a coffee, you can do so via Buy Me a Coffee and other platforms. You can find all the necessary links in the description. Until next time.